Where I left off, I actually don't know what I'm going to work on right now. Let's just jump into the project here. Come back to the space map. Let me get my actual corded mouse. I'm using a small laptop. So, we want to... I've only got these ones. I need to make a template for the gas giant here. While we're still messing with actor templates. I'll just call that one gaseous and allow changes. And in the base of this one, these ones you can dock and scan, but we probably don't want clouds to be default. And our type will be gaseous. And then in our default actor, I always forget where it is. We want the planet. And I don't know. Yes, I guess I did. That might be for the sun. We'll just give it this small atmosphere because I think it's too small to show. So we end up with a invisible layer. But actually, I did make one for the gas giant. Just kidding. Let's take a peek. How big did I make the... Oh, I didn't. And I named these wrong. That should be planet. I'm gonna save that. So the atmosphere, forgot I increased the size of it. It's 512 gradient. So let me see. I'll copy that really quick. Come over here. I forget how big this one was. 600. And it's also kind of weird. So I'm gonna copy, oops, paste. I'm gonna actually make a new one here for gaseous layer. I'll paste that in there. I think it's a little bit smoother. I want it to face X. Yeah, that should work. I think I'm gonna make it the same size. Oh, it already 122, 122, 122. I want to make it the same size as it is on the actual original planet. And then we'll get rid of that. Now, actually I can go back into this template, add the default, and we'll swap that out for the gaseous atmosphere, which should show up if I create a new one. And I'm just gonna, bye, kill that guy. We will now throw a new one in here and call it same thing we called it before, Jovian. Da -da -da -da. There's our atmosphere layer. The body is separate. And I think yep, I've got everything set correctly. So we'll come back in here. We'll give it a crazy climate, bunch of radiation. There's a butt ton of pressure. Probably no tectonics on a planet made of gas. And I'm not going to do any hot spots. We'll just say large gaseous planet temporarily, just to make sure it works. And scooch him up here by the station. This is the craziest gravity in this solar system. Must be ridiculous. Let's go. I wish I could make them all those fancy spinning planets. But that's planets like 100 frames of animation, which is kind of insane. One gaseous planet.
Scanning.
you and what's your name?
Entering
Dock with
planetary
that,
orbit.
and everything works as we wanted. There's no cloud layer in the 3D map. You can scan it and there's going to be nothing there. Da-da-da-da. Scan complete, no results. It's just a gaseous planet, and there will be more information, more stuff to gain from some of these. I'm actually hoping to try and create a discoveries log to keep track of all the things you find. What is going on here? Okay. Get out of that. And so we've got one for each of these, and there's there's a ton more planet types. I've also got let's say we go back here to my planet textures. That's the P. Oh my gosh. Planet textures. So these are all custom, completely unique planet textures. It'd be fun to show off how I made some of these. There's a tool. You can actually follow a link on my website to get it. But most of these textures, they're equal rectangular, like spherical textures. That they're intended to be wrapped around a sphere or used to texture a planet. And that's really all they're for. You can, I don't know, you can do whatever you want with them. They're public domain. You can grab them on my website or on Itch.io. But I've got a whole bunch of different kinds. I'm going to use a number of these, probably all of these ones in this game, at least for examples. And I'm working on some other ones. I do have some custom Blender stuff where I mix some of these textures and do some cool things. But typically I just kind of pick one of these to wrap around a sphere, or I can convert them into spheres in GIMP, and sometimes I do. If you've ever been to my website, you've seen some of the tutorials related to 2D planets, which actually I think there's several methods actually. Go to my website, screamingbrainstudios.com. There's a tutorial here on creating spherical planets, 2D planet sprites. You can do some pretty simple stuff with GIMP, turning square textures into spheres or circles. I've done this a lot for some of the test planets in this project, and then you end up adding some spherical gradient to it. This is a specific shade of gray, and this shade doesn't affect the lightness of the image underneath it. If you use a specific blend mode in GIMP, there's a type of blending called grain merge, which it's not in Photoshop, but I guess that's kind of weird, but I don't know how many cases there are where people really choose to use this over any other blend mode, but it's one of my favorites for lighting and shading because you can kind of control where the effect happens. So wherever the lightness of this gradient is lighter than this particular shade of gray, I believe it's 128, 128, 128 RGB. If it's this middle shade of gray, because there's 255 shades, I think, and so the closer it is to black, the darker it will be, but anything that's under this 128 gray will just be neutral, the same color as it was, without being affected at all, and anything lighter than this will be lightened. So it's actually really good for lighting effects and stuff, which there's a couple tutorials related to. I think there's some in the isometric lighting. Yeah, there's you can use this gray to simulate like light patches, dark areas, and light and shading, or simulated false or faux lighting with that blend mode. It's actually pretty useful. So I've done something different with these planets. some of them are made. I'm trying to use uniform lighting for the most part, but most of these are made without lighting in Blender. There's just some simple, probably pull it up. There's some simple mapping. It's really basic. Let's get the day exporter. So turn on the textures. It's pretty much, I think I moved the texture that I was using. So I'll just come in here, go to the graphic packs, find my planet textures, and we can just pick. Sometimes I use the square ones, but you can use any of them. I'll pick one from this Martian folder. I get this cool, like, red look. So that's not the one that I'm using for the lighting, but I have to use several projects for this. One of them for, I guess this is something that I should cover just because this is part of the process of making this particular game. So pull open this project here, get out of there, go over here, turn that on, and basically it's just a simple sphere. There's nothing really to it. Sphere with a camera. I've got the camera pointed at it in a specific way, 45-degree angle, orthographic projection. So it's not in perspective, which would give it more depth. I want it to be flat, and the strength of my bump here changes the roughness of the surface, or how high things are, and sometimes it just looks really stupid and ugly. And it's really not controlled because I'm using the same texture as a height map, which I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do or not. But really, you can just swap out the. I'm gonna go grab one of the Martian ones again. Swap out the texture there. You get an actual real color. I believe that's the color of it. Now, oh yeah, I have to switch it to. You have to switch the color space to sRGB. Otherwise, it doesn't match the colors. I haven't figured out everything about Blender yet. This is something I'm still learning. A lot of it's, trial and error. Let's see what I get as I go. But run a render on. Oh my God, what is happening with this window? Run a render, and this is basically the sprite. I'll import that sprite. And if you haven't seen that process in 001, I can actually run through really quickly. Actually, I forgot to announce this stream. I don't think anybody's going to. 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Probably want to get a link, and I'll copy my own link. Okay, so the process is pretty easy. So I'll go back over here and I'll just save this as a Martian planet. I want to go back into my project folder. I go back in here. I think I've got, where did I put my planets folder? New planets. And we'll go in here. We'll say, I think I have a planet type that I could use this for. I'm kind of winging it and making things up in some cases for planet names, planet types. Some of them are probably just fantastical and don't exist in the real world. Like, you're probably not going to find a planet called Primordial. That's kind of inspired by Star Control. There's probably not planets made entirely out of copper, but wouldn't that be neat? And I just dropped all my stuff. Okay, so I'm going to have, all these different kinds of carbon planet where you can find like diamonds and silicon, or ocean world is just water. I don't think I've made an ocean world texture yet, but let's see what I've got. If this can match anything, maybe it's kind of got copper all over it, or brown. I can maybe temporarily call this a copper planet, I guess. Oop. Copper 1. Save that. And when you're when you're using 001, you can import your sprites, or import your artwork over here in this sprite editor. Looks like a little dude because it's the actor icon. And we'll come over here. Actually, normally you can click this add resource button, and when you click that, it brings up this sprite template window. And I don't have any sprite template stuff set up. That'll create a new sprite there, but what I want to do instead is copy one of the existing planets, because it'll copy all the properties and the animation layers and stuff. So I'll paste that, and I'm just going to call it Copper 1. Aye. Copper 1. And we will replace that with the planet I just made, which is in here somewhere, isn't it? Oh yeah, put it in here. There we go. So that'll just replace that graphic with this fun little red planet. It's got a cool little ice cap. So that's something else. Part of the process, I'm actually writing up a tutorial related to the program that I use to make these, because the website, you can still get the tool for free as a download, but all the information related to using it is basically the website's broken and you can't access the tutorial information or the help information. And I'll pull it up really quick just to show you what it looks like. And I think that's where it is. I could be wrong. I don't know why it's making me reset my presets folder, but alright, well, while that's loading, come back over here, and I don't have a template for that copper planet, so I can actually just make a new one. No. You can change the parent here instead of dragging and dropping it in the list, so you can just pull it out. And we'll call it a copper planet. We want to be able to make changes in actors we've placed on the map, and we want to set the base actor so that the type is a copper planet. It's going to have clouds, and it's not going to have any settings here, but we want the type to be copper. This could be temporary, just for fun. I'm adding a new planet type, and we'll edit our default actor to have the copper planet sprite. Some of these are old, and they're taking up space. I'll have to clear out things. And we'll give it the medium atmosphere. I want to say the copper planet. It's got the coppery atmosphere already. But a red atmosphere? I don't know. I don't know what color to make a copper planet's atmosphere. So we'll just leave it this brownish coppery color. Meanwhile, back over here, it didn't load any of my presets. Thanks. So somewhere on my computer are my presets and colorizers, which very weird that they disappeared. Where's my textures for planets folder? Crafting created. No, it's missing all of my colorizers. I know they're here somewhere. I actually think my colorizers might be... Actually, I'll just do a search on my computer for colorizers. There's several of them. Which one are you? That must be the one. There we are. Oh, that's so irritating. I really hate OneDrive. OneDrive has like moved my things or duplicated stuff in weird, dumb places. I don't care for it. I will say that. So I'll come back over here to my colorizers folder. I want to skip anything that's the same, get back out of there, and I kind of want to go make sure I got all of my... So I'm going to need all of the templates, I think. Documents, textures for planets, templates, skip those, and then we'll go back to this one, and I think I grabbed a couple more, or made a couple more tools. So there's a couple things about this program. It works in a weird way. I'll actually be releasing a tutorial related to creating these, but there's no longer any information related to these on the website, and the way these are created is really interesting. It's I guess I should reopen the program. No, you. We got one viewer apparently. Greetings and hello. So this isn't actually loading my... Very weird. I wonder why. It didn't load up my... Oh, I know why. Let me copy all these, because it's putting them in my Wocoder, my old username. Where's my documents? I'm just blind here. I don't know why this is the same thing. No, don't do that. Users Woke documents. Well, you know what? Let's not mess with that right now. That's kind of irritating. Meanwhile, the program itself is doesn't have any of my custom planets or my colorizers. I'll have to figure out where it's actually putting everything. Hold on. Maybe there's a preference. No. So it's an incredibly simple program. There's really nothing that you can learn from inside the program other than just messing around with it. And when you run the program, it'll do these weird shapes and, you know, icosahedral projections and whatnot. But the basic premise of the program is a process called oh, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Fault formation. It's called fault formation. It's this weird technique where a gradient is used. It's a color gradient, and if I go back into my documents there again, I can pull up one of my gradients, I believe. Yeah, they're little colorizers. They're called colorizers, but you can create different type of gradients. These are for gas giants, basically. The style is for a gas giant. There's different types. I think yeah. So this is one for a methane planet, and we're talking about these 4 positions on the square when I'm referring to like the elevation and depth. So basically, the lower it is on this square, the lower the elevation, and the higher areas on the square are higher elevation. But then the further to the right, it's kind of the same. It goes up in an angle like this. So the lower elevations tend to be in this direction over here, and the higher elevations are over here. So these would be like mountain caps or the polar ice caps, and these would be, you know, some grass fields. And it's just blended colors, blurred colors. They have to be in specific positions. You kind of create your shorelines and whatnot. And after running the process of this program, I actually don't have any of my colorizers in there to show you, so that's unfortunate, but I do have the results of those in my asset pack, and you can get these online for free already. They're total public domain. You can use them however you want. But the result of that one is a really cool looking. The way the program works is it takes that gradient and it draws a series of lines. It's very hard to demonstrate this without some other program, but it draws a bunch of lines that end up looking like triangles. Then it fractures those in half, and a bunch of color shifting happens, and this happens thousands of times. It splits each part over and over and over and over and over and over until you end up with this relatively reasonable looking planetary surface. And it's totally random seeds and everything. You have darker areas in the water. It'll form lakes with this process. Depending on how I create the colorizer, I can actually control where my shorelines are, where deeper water is, and then where the polar ice caps. It actually has two elevation detections, like lower elevations and higher elevations, but also what's closer to the equator and what's closer to the poles. So there's some thought that has to go into creating these, and actually it does take some time to render these out. I would say something like 15-20 minutes per set sometimes. But once that's done, I can come over to Blender and import the texture here, which I have all this extra stuff down here that's unhooked right now. But sometimes I can add glows and make the rivers of fire glowy, or add some shine to water. I haven't done too much with that yet, but I'll basically render that out, import it in here, and we basically already have a template for the new planet that we just made, so we can load that in. And we have a new copper planet with an atmosphere. And copper planet, we'll just temporarily give it all these ones. This planet is entirely made out of copper, which it's it's a bit too red to be all copper, and I don't know. We don't actually have to change any of these right now, but just throw it on the map, and we have a new planet type already. They can float behind or in front of other planets. Really fun. And so we've got a few different types of planets now to mess about with, and I'll probably start designing more of the map layouts eventually once I get. You might get bored watching me do these same planets and menus over and over, but it's really to perfect it, get it right. There's my Twitter. There is, let's see, not a whole lot. I actually have to import the surface for the copper planet because it needs a surface background, and that would be here. No, it's not. That would be in the where did I put those? Dang it. Docking orbit backgrounds. So take that, copy that, paste that. We'll make a surface copper. And at the moment, it looks like I'm using the square versions for some reason. I don't think I have to do that. I could probably use my full-size versions, but... Well, actually, I don't know why I made that a 2. Brain fart. We'll go back over to our asset packs. Go down to the planet texture pack again. Da-la-la. And we'll pick I think it was the third one. Can actually make sure over here. It's Martian 01, not the third one. Pick that. And there, it stretches it out anyways because I've changed the magnification, so it's a 2:1. It's half the size that it is wide, half the size high that it is wide, and we'll just call that a planet surface. I haven't gone through and named all these layers, which might seem tedious, but if you ever add anything over these, or in as another layer on top of it. It's really good to have all of these labeled because you'll be able to see it here. I'll save that. Now when we dock at the copper planet, or orbit the copper planet, it should give us a surface and a... Oh, there's one more thing. The last step, I forgot. The very first thing I did, I showed you opening this one here. What I want to do is export a collada, and I don't think I'm exporting them in here, was I? New planets, there we are, models, and this will be the copper one, copper1.day, DAE. That's the final piece. I need to move some of these into other folders so I can make this smaller again. Oh, I forget where, because I've made so many folders now, it's kind of obnoxious. In the planet view, there we are. So we'll copy, paste that, and then we want it to be called 3D Copper 1. And the way that works is basically the game checks the planet sprite. It'll look for Copper 1, Planet Copper 1. Anything related to it has a different tag. So the docking orbit in the planet surfaces, it's going to be called Surface Copper 1, and for the 3D planet it's called 3D Copper 1, but we want to replace this guy here. Go back to our folder, back to our models, and grab our copper. And I did something wrong here, apparently. Why is that not working? Don't save. I ran into this issue the other day and I wasn't really sure what was going on. No. Why is it doing that? I think I'll use the square one, Martian 01, and then we'll export that collada. I can't remember if I had to do something weird. Where's my assets? I keep forgetting where everything is. I haven't organized everything very well. And sometimes I run into this where it doesn't import the texture, but there's our texture. There's our copper planet, and now we'll test it out. Wah, wah, wah. And fly past the gaseous giant. There's our copper planet. Everything's working so far.
Scanning.
Scan it. We dock.
Entering planetary
check
orbit.
it out. There's our cool 3D world, our plain old flat surface map. No hot spots because we haven't made any. Totally poor in everything, even in copper. Now, that's a few planets. So I'll probably have to go through and make a whole bunch of... I still have... God, I don't think I've imported any barren planet surfaces. I haven't imported any dusty planet surfaces. These ones are kind of neat. It's like a strange golden desert. I made... there's a feature of the texture program that lets you add cracks and volcanoes, and it's all custom. I had to make everything from scratch, but once you know how to use the program, it's not too bad, and you can make all kinds of cool stuff. Some of these aren't my favorite. think I wanted to rework the way some of these colors lined up, and then the colors on this one were absolutely bonkers. But still, it's usable as a planet, and so I've made a whole bunch of these. The sandy one's kind of nice too. I like the water. It did end up with a lot more lines than I wanted, but I wanted it to be mostly ocean and sand. And our snowy planet. There's another one that I want to do, a full ocean planet, which will just be, lots of ocean. But I'm not sure how to handle the poles exactly. I'd like it to look more like the smoothness that I got going on with my gas giants here. But I've got all kinds of gas giant textures too, so I actually have a whole ton of these to make, which is crazy. And now that my mini-map looks bonkers, because all these planets are like just crammed together, I don't actually have to test all of them immediately either. So I really only need one planet close to the start point. I'll move this guy back down here. And we'll put this guy over here somewhere. Maybe doesn't really matter. And then we'll scoot that back over here by the space station. I think the player spawns somewhere around here. Okay, this is something that I can just do later. It's not important that you guys watch me type detailed descriptions. I've kind of got actor templates in a state that I want them, but I don't really have all of them done. Ships, those are coming later, I believe, because I've only got one kind of ship, one NPC ship. It's very silly. Its behavior is not great. I'm still working on designing the behaviors, and you'll check it out. This right here, I'm using some placeholder ship graphics. These are really nice 3D ships from my pal Quaternius, who you can also get all kinds of cool stuff from his website at quaternius.com. He's got all public domain 3D low poly models for all kinds of stuff, and there's one full of spaceships, and it's beautiful, and I'm just mostly using them as placeholders to fill in for when I make my own. But until then, these include a very complicated script that I did. Actually, pull it up. I think not that one. Not that one. It's in one of my timers, and these guys have a lot of timers. Looks like, oh, it's changed. There we are. So I created this ridiculous script called a pose changer, and the way these work, 001's default system, or default sprites, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 positions that these things can face, and that's great and all, but I wanted double that. I wanted 16 positions, and it's very tricky because you have to figure out what the angles in between each of these directions is, and this took quite a long time. And so in the end, it actually requires that I gotta pull up my actors, my ships here. So it requires 3 separate sprites for each ship, and each one is a specific angle. One is in between each of the other angles. So B and C here each contain a series of poses. When you're facing down on this pose, it's kind of, southwest. When you're facing down on this pose, it's southeast. So it actually has 3 different sprites for each of these, and this got complicated, but the way that that works, you could recreate this in your own projects even. You'd have a ABC sprite with those different directions in it. It's actually crazy how that how I set that up. But you have to check for every 22.5 degrees which direction the ship is facing. So you have to take the direction angle of the ship. That's geometry.degrees of the direction angle. You want the degrees of the direction angle because the direction angle is in radians. You want to convert that radians into degrees. And in order to determine what to do with it, you have to check if it's negative first, and if it's negative, you make it positive. Otherwise, add 360. I think if it's negative, you add 360. I'll kind of hover over these for anybody who wants to look at them. But the crazy and most tricky part of this all is the conditions for rotating the ship and choosing the poses is just this absurd number of range branches. And if I put them next to each other, it's easier to tell what's going on here slightly. But each of these is going to switch between one of those 3 sprites. And every single one of these is checking an angle between 0 and 11.25, then 11.25 and 22.5, basically all the way up to 360 to cover the entire rotational range. And so as it changes angle, it has to switch between directions B, A, and C, or A, B, and C. But the effect is pretty nice. I'm gonna not save that, and I think I'm gonna give him back his pose changing, and we'll just create a couple of these guys to zoom around the player. And they're dumb. They don't actually have any behaviors yet. I think there's like a condition where they see you, they just kind of fly towards you, and then sometimes they get stuck on things. But we'll make a whole bunch of these. They also have some scripting for bouncing and colliding, which I can show how colliding or collisions bounce back works. Oh no, I don't think I need that in there anymore either. You silly, foolish ships. We have crashed. Forget it. So, part of that is because I have yet to I've yet to actually fix any of the scripting inside the NPC ships. They're just really boring, basic, like rotate towards the player, move forward. I don't know why I have some of these in here. Don't need any of that. Yeah, I'm not using any of those variables. I don't know why. I never went back through and cleared out things when I cleaned up my variables yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Let's go. Alright. Look at them go. They just kind of fly around. I think they see each other and they get stuck on things. But you can bounce into them. I guess some of them don't move. They're supposed to. I've not really mastered AI yet, but when they do fly around, You can actually shoot at them, but it breaks because they don't have any equipment on, so you can't check what their attack power is. And wow, that broke everything. Boy, sorry for shooting you, bro. Don't break my game, y'all. I wish they'd fly around. Originally, I did have it set up for the player. I don't think I do anymore. I've got the code saved. Let me swap it out for my 3D ship here. So it's kind of weird. I think I'm looking at things in top down. I don't want it to be the 3D ship. I forgot. I want it to be not my 3D ship. So there's a couple different versions that I've tried. I've used 3D ships. We're gonna go in here, grab the shuttle, the Bob, I believe it's called. But we'll go with the 45 Bob. This was my default Explorer ship. Very cool models by Quaternius. There's just, I don't have enough of them to actually use. And in the case of these 16-degree snapping, they can only fire their weapon in the direction that they're facing. So it actually gets... I did that to myself again. No! Lag City. But yeah, you can still see the turning drift. When you let go of the keys, it still floats and rotates. And all the mechanics work. You just swap out the sprite. Dock at space station, resume flights. Let's go bounce off somebody. Boop. So I still don't actually know how well I got the math right on that, but it'll push them in the opposite direction. If they come flying at you, kind of transfers some of the force that they had into your ship. I've definitely broken the script they were using for flying around, but bonk. Since they're being dumb, I'm just gonna delete these. Building AI ships will be a whole task. So I've created a custom event called Ship Collide, and all you have to do is drop it into the collided trigger. This could be collided with actor, and right now I've got it set to collided with NPC ship. You can set it to whoever has this in it. This was the original script, so I'll scooch that out of the way, and this is now the event, the Ship Collide event, and we'll go into that. That's absolutely bonkers mess. I know when I first started with 001, there's a lot of things that it seem like they'd be easy to do, but they're totally math heavy, or they require some kind of algorithm, or not even algorithm, some equation, Pythagorean theorem, trigonometry, stuff that I don't understand because I am garbage at math. So a lot of Googling and a lot of testing and a lot of retesting and failing and everything. There's a whole series of variables involved in this, and you're basically checking what hit what. Actor relate is going to be what actor hit this one, and then because you can put this entire event inside an actor's collided trigger, when that trigger is fired, it'll pass the name of the ship that hit you into this one and subtract this one's X from that one's X. Basically, relate is that one and this is this one. Do that for both the X and the Y. Then there's this bounce distance variable, which is going to be the square root of the bounce x to the power of 2 plus bounce y to the power of 2. And you can get all of these, I'm just going to use this one here. You can get all of these use values down here in the math section, which is a lot of little calculators. All of these have their own uses. They all have their own little functions, but they're all math related. So you want to return the modulus or the remainder of something when you divide. This is the modulus function. This is the integer modulus function. That's whole numbers instead. There's natural logarithm, which is used for scaling. Exponential is the value of e, which I've only just recently learned about, but it's a constant that you can use for, I think you can use it for various physics simulation stuff, and it's a very specific number, I believe. Or no, the exponential is the, yeah, that's what it is, the weird value of e. Then you've got, your basic ones. Check to see if something is a number, round to the nearest this, round to the nearest that, check if what's the highest number. And that's where you get the math power of functions. You can always, manually type in, like if you want 2 to the power of 2, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 for the power of 4 or whatever. But it's easier to just grab these use values. So then the next one actually uses that value and divides the original two values by itself. So this is going to be the value that the two bounce values are divided by. And then you've got the speed, and you take the velocity of each actor, the one that's crashing into you and you, subtract their positions, or not their positions, their velocity here. So then there's a thing called dot product, and that took me forever to figure out. I actually had to created a use value for this. I'm going to probably release these maybe on the Discord for 001 or somewhere. But dot product is basically just vector x times vector x1 times vector x2 plus vector y1 times vector y2. That's literally the x and y positions of two objects. So you have actor 1 x and y, that'll be vector x1 and vector y1. And then actor 2's x and y are the second values. And you'll multiply those two x's, those two y's, add them together. I just turned it into a simple use value, and that's what's going to be used right here. The bounce x, bounce y, and speed x, speed y, because you want the dot product of the position and the speed here. Then the bounce strength. Bounce strength will be the max number between the dot product of those two and 0.96. Or I can't remember exactly what the third value here is for, but let's just say you copy paste this into your own project if you want. But this is kind of how strong it is. You can change these numbers, tweak them a bit, and there will be more bounce back or less bounce back. And bounce by how much? You'll be multiplying the new version of bounce x, which has been divided by the distance. You'll be multiplying the new one by the bounce strength. So this is all rather complicated and silly, just to get this one little behavior. Then you change the velocity of each actor, the one that hit it, and this one. And interestingly, you want to put this in both ships. So in the NPC ship, there's also a collided with actor with this event in it. I originally had the whole script in there, but anyone who's used 001 probably has screens that look exactly like this all over the place. So now, you see the complicated part about ships is, or NPCs, anything really, there's going to be probably another 50 of these little conditions and 1,000 more variables, because I want to be able to check if the ship is moving, rotating, where it's facing, the angle, a number of things that I want to be able to access from other areas of the game in order to interact with them. However, I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. That will take some planning. So take a look back here at my Blender project. So I don't really need these open. I forgot I even have this open. Let's save this project here. I'm working on some texture stuff in Genetica, testing out some materials for building like wattle and daub walls or cottage walls. Cottage wall test 1. And just to save on my memory and all that, get back out of this old one here. Who's viewing me? Why doesn't it let me ever see? No, not exactly sure which part I want to work on. There's a few things that I could try and knock out real quick, but none of them will be real quick. That's unfortunate. Is there a way to tell who's in my stream? I can talk, but nobody ever talks back. And even if there's somebody watching, it's usually just the one person. So let's take a look back in my to-do list here. Can't really do much with the ships right now. So I've got at least halfway here of a list of planets and materials, and I haven't decided on any kinds of objects. But I'm hoping to have more types of planets. I've got volcanic. I think I put gas giant in here, but I want to call them gaseous planets. Then I've got rocky, terrestrial, gaseous, noble. Noble's basically just a solid planet with gaseous elements on it. That's another it's an inspiration from Star Control 2, which that's another title this is influenced by. Very similar style, but not quite the same. In that game, I think you return to one station, refuel, and then go back out into space. And I actually enjoy the process of going to different stations, discovering different things without having to backtrack. But in some cases, I think in this game there's going to be a main hub, at least a main station, where you'll return, and I don't know if it's going to be using this space station model or not, but I actually have to make more space stations because I don't have enough space stations to work with. I'm trying to bother a friend of mine to help me out with those. Give me some placeholder space stations, or at least model me a cool space station to use. Since I can't really model, I can make spheres though. So, I'm not sure which part I wanted to mess with. I want to figure out how to scale the speed of this, because it's kind of it goes way too fast. It goes too fast when the scan process is happening. If the hotspot's too close to the left side of the screen, get over here. The hotspot's too close to this side, then the scan line just kind of. I want it to move quickly to the ones that are closer, and then kind of slow, so it has like a uniform speed. But if you set it to move at the same speed, it's gonna do. If you tell it to take 1.5 seconds, it will take 1.5 seconds to move here. It'll take 1.5 seconds to move there. So in my scan button, my deep scan button, I want to mess with these delay values here. They're all, I think the first one's, yeah, duration 3. So yeah, the way these work, the delay fields, they run in milliseconds. This is hours, minutes, seconds, and this is actually 1.500 milliseconds or 1.5 thousand. Yeah, 1,500. 1,500 is 1.5 seconds. So the tough part, I would imagine, is figuring out a way for me to convert the pixel distance from the scan line, the vertical scan line, to the hotspot on the map. Convert it somehow so that I can use that distance to multiply it into a delay. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that. I think I'd have to do it inside this script because it's checking each of these elements in a collection, and the collection itself is stored inside a variable in this funky format that I've shown a couple times. I don't actually think I have it typed out anymore. There it is. One version of it. It's stored in a way that each element in the collection is just divided by a semicolon, and you end up splitting that collection using the collection or the text.split option in 001 to split it into a collection or treat it like a collection. It doesn't actually create a new one in the list of collections, but it does allow you to treat it like one and point at the different like elements in that collection. So I could look at just the first element, the second element, or the third element. And I think what I want to do is, depending on which one we're looking at, because this numeric loop uses a variable called spawning axis, and I can actually use the spawning axis as a reference to the elements in each collection. So it would be spawning axis 1 is the first element, spawning action 2 or spawning axis 2 would be the second element in that collection. You know, spawning axis 1 is the first, second, third. I don't know if that's not very clear or not, but what I want to do is make sure that as the scan line, the vertical scan line, is moving towards the first hotspot, that it's basing it on the distance between itself and the first hotspot. So I want to actually be able to reference the hotspot names. It's going to be hotspot underscore spawn axis, I believe, which I'm going to clear these out here. We're going to want a script that looks like, or a line. Oh my gosh, I can't type today. It's going to look like this. Hotspot underscore and spawn axis. I'll just copy paste that for now, because I'm going to want to paste it in soon. But in order to get the distance between the vertical scan line and the current hotspot, I kind of want to make another variable, and I'm going to call it distance from. I actually have no idea if this is going to work. That's part of the fun. It's experimentation, trial and error. So I want to know, did it really? It didn't copy that for me. Copy. I want to know the distance. What is happening? Control C, Control V. Oh, I see what's happening. I'm copying it from the line above it. I'll copy that, paste that. So, okay. So the distance from is going to be, this is going to be the field that we're checking, and we want to see the distance from the x distance. Actually, distance between the x and y of I actually don't know if this is going to work right. Orbit scanline v dot x and field this dot x. I don't know if that's going to work or not. We'll find out. I'm actually going to make a log message for that. And we'll call it, or we'll set it to be, quote, distance from next hotspot. And so that'll give me a little log message in the bottom corner. Pal, pal, boom, click, tune, pion. And yikes. Good website. So, I forgot to change my ship back. Doesn't matter right now, but I'll use this little guy.
Scanning.
There's something about layering here that's
Entering
messing up with
planetary
my
orbit.
ship graphic. So, spawn axis is not a variable. Spawning axis. That's right. It's always little things like that that you miss. This is using axis, spawning axis, and I'm trying to check for spawn axis. And I want it to be spawning axis. Let's try that one more time. So hopefully what I can do is make this, if it's a short distance, it'll take a short time, and if it's a longer distance, it'll take a slightly longer time. But we want it to be variable. We don't want a fixed time, because if it's a fixed time, it'll just speed across at the same rate, and it's really weird. At least to me, I think it's weird.
Scanning. Entering planetary orbit.
So I'll do our scan. So it moves all fast there. So that's giving us basic estimate of how far it is from the next hotspot. It says it's 18 pixels, or 18. This one's 154, 258. I wonder if it's going by actual, like a line distance here.
Plant life detected.
Couldn't tell you. I don't think there's 544 pixels in between it, but what I'm going to do with that is, it sort of looks like that might work. I'm not really sure, because my distance to variable here, or distance from, it's only, actually, that's separate, so never mind. Oh, I had something in my head that is incorrect, but I've not actually tried using the distance to determine the distance between fields before. Usually I check the distance between objects or actors on a map, so that's a little bit weird. I hope that works, but I want that distance value to be used here. And if we take that distance of, oh, what was the first one? 18, I think it was, times 1,000. That gives us 18,000. That would be a big number. So I don't want to do that. I want to take that number and make it smaller. So distance from, how small? So take 18 and multiply it by 0.8. I get a slightly smaller number. If I take 18 and multiply it by 0.08, I get a nice teensy number. So that would make it take 1.44 seconds. But if it's 255.0.08, we get 20 seconds, and that's not what we want. So it should be scaled down, but I don't know how to make it scale down exactly yet. And basically this will have to be multiplied by 1,000, so 20 times 1,000 is 20 seconds, and that's not what we want either. So let's see, if we did it by 0.008, we'll get this little small number, which times 1,000 is 144. Still seems pretty big. We'll go ahead and try this 0.008, 0.005. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but we'll get this small number, which times 1,000 is 90. I don't think that's going to be 90 seconds. I think it's 9 seconds. I could be wrong, but basically this is going to... I'm going to put this in here as distance from times 1,000. Now, I haven't messed with these delay value inputs the use value areas much. I am probably just now making it incredibly small. Or incredibly slow, not small. Where's my mouse? Where's my mouse? Alrighty, back up here. Scanning. Fast forward a little bit. Docking.
Entering
Fast forward a little
planetary
bit.
orbit.
And let's see what happens here.
Plant life
So it's
detected.
doing a variable speed. It's slower to reach these, and it's much quicker to reach these. But that speed's really funky. Really, really funky. And I actually am uncertain what I would want this to be. And so you can actually clamp things, clamp the number between distance from and 1,000. I don't know what the low end would be, but we want it to be distance from 1,000 and a high end so we can stop it from getting too fast. We want it to not get faster than 1.5 seconds, I think. I don't know. We'll try that. Oops, we want to clamp the value of not 0. I forget what I was doing there. So technically that's not going to work right because it's going way too fast at the beginning. I'll probably have to do something like a scaling function that I don't know because, again, I'm a piece of trash when it comes to math. And I really have to dig for answers. We'll just set these to 1.5 again for now. Oopsie daisy. I'll save that. Come back out and save that. So, uncertain about fixing the speed there. That's a toughie. Oh. I want that to be a question mark because I don't know what to do. Not without some more research. And then adding a distance check to station docking. So that's an easy enough one. Over here in my context overlay, I think I've got these 4 button shadows that I never named, and I'm probably going to group them into an actual single background at some point. So there's only one of those. We want to go into the docking activation, and over here, actually, for reference, check in the scanning here. It runs this custom event called the scan object, which or object scanner. I only made this to kind of get it out of the way, and there is already a function here is the ship within range of the target, but it's what this one's doing is checking to make sure that you're within scan range. I want to copy that. I want to copy out of range. I'd like to copy these, get the out of range delay in here, and I believe all of that is set up in the docking button already, so if it's not, I'll add it. And we want to be able to check to see if the player is close enough. Is the ship docking with a station or a planet? And over here, these actually came first. And if the ship is within range, it's going to do this stuff. If it's not, we want it to come down here and quit doing all of the things that it was doing. No longer docking. I think the interface menu is on. Should only come after if the player is within distance. So interface, or no, that's the docking one. I want this one. Docking comes first. This goes here, this goes here, and this goes here. So these switches I use to check the conditions of things. Every single action will turn on a wait action button, and then the specific actions like docking, this turns on a docking switch. So in a number of cases, it's going to always check to see if nothing like a scan action or docking or mining is happening. This is to determine if any action is happening, and this is to specifically refer to the docking. And so over here, there's an out of range sound effect. It changes this text field here, the action flash text field, to say out of range. That's what the change text value does. And then there's a timer on the minimap that will actually blip and flash it'll flash the words out of range above the minimap. It's just a small little script. And over here, I want to see if the distance between the actor or the main player and the currently selected actor is less than the distance to dock at the planet. And what we want that to be, right now it's checking the body size of the sprite, the size of the sprite, divided by 2 minus 32, which kind of want to get rid of that. Get rid of this parenthesis here to fix that. So it's checking to see if the texture of the body sprite, the actor currently selected body sprite size, divided by 2, if the player is within this range. But we also kind of, because this will, I think it basically makes sure the player is like right up against the object that's about to dock with. And over here, ship is no longer docking. We actually only turn that on if it's in range, and hopefully that does the trick. It will, if we're too far from the planet, it'll tell us that we're out of range. If we're out of range, let's find out.
Out of range.
Out of range. And then we get an error because there are no orbit buttons turned on, which isn't what we want. So I just have to squish a copy of these into another section of this script. So basically it's running through a bunch of these update interface things, but none of these are actually, these ones aren't turned on, so when it tries to update it, it doesn't work. So I'm just going to do that. I don't actually need that one. No matter what condition or path these take, it will end up with the ship no longer docking, and the final step is to turn off the action wait, which this is turned on if anything is happening, any kind of action from this menu. So we do get the correct flashing out of range message. So if I click over here,
Out of range.
out of range, and it doesn't automatically update the context menu. I gotta double update the context menu. So we'll go back in here. I wish I didn't have to do that. That would be sweet. Refresh the context menu and refresh the context menu, because I believe it's refreshed somewhere else, isn't it? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know why I have to do this sometimes. Basically because the first refresh refreshes the label, and the background button gets refreshed to the new state of the label after you refresh the interface a second time. Well, alright, let's go back up here. Docking.
Out of range.
So,
Out of range. Out of
shouldn't
range.
even do that yet. So, my scan button, I mostly want to copy the behaviors from these, and pressing on the scan button turns into pressed. Pressing on the dock button turns it to pressed. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 triggers here in the docking button, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here in the scan button. And let's see. I can't remember what made it return to normal. Because all of this is stored separately. Change text value, change existence of the flasher, turn off the scan animation. As soon as nothing is being scanned, nothing is being docked. Now, it could be any number of things I'm doing funky here. Probably some stuff to do with retrieve sprite, because I don't want it to stay green like that. I don't think I'm retrieving the sprite. No, that's the background that I want to check. So associate disabled and wait action, context active. And then in the scan button, I'm just kind of rambling here. Might not be explaining too great, but checking to make sure all my conditions here are correct. And I think, interesting. So that one's set for wait scanning. I want to set this one to look the same as that, so that it checks not wait scanning but wait docking, and it will basically give me the same same results here. I'm going to just move this over. This one thing that's really useful is to not delete your old scripts sometimes, because you can use them to reference, or you might want to just put them back really quickly, so don't always delete them. Now I might be able to remove that double update interface, but I'm not sure.
Out of range.
Out of range. So it doesn't. Weird. Whenever weight docking is off and its associate is enabled, I want it to turn back to normal. So let's try skipping that one for now. Oh, that's why. So I was updating the interface before turning off the switch that changes the button back. So, very small fix. One thing I really like about the visual programming, the no-code scripting language in 001 is a lot of times you can just look and you'll see something is in the wrong order, which in a lot of cases, I've never been good at coding, typing.
Out of range.
There we go.
Out
It'll
of
stay
range.
green until it fails because you're too far and out of range. Now let's see if it'll let me dock when I get too close.
Out of range.
Out of range.
Docking.
There we go. Once you're right up next to it,
Out of range.
the same thing should happen.
Out of range.
So you won't be able to orbit the planet unless you're close enough to it, but you can't scan it unless you're close enough to it either. So we'll scan the planet, test the docking range.
Out of range.
It should let you dock when you're right up on it.
Out of range.
Still not quite, but I should be able to dock here.
Entering planetary orbit.
Okay, so that works. And then we have our broken scanner still. Well, it's not broken, it's just... I feel like it should move consistently between these, but
Plant life detected.
that's okay. Everything is working. All of our little selection points and everything spawning, so that's cool. And our docking distance now doesn't let you dock or orbit if you're too far. So that'll make it... It also prevents you from clicking on things while an action's happening. If you're out of range, you shouldn't be able to immediately push the button again.
Docking.
I might adjust that docking range. I don't know. Really, it shouldn't be an upgrade or something, because I don't know how you would upgrade the distance you're able to dock from something. That seems unrealistic, but that works perfectly with the scanning range. You can increase the scanner's distance, how far away from the objects you can be before you can scan them. So we'll go back over to my to-do list and we'll check that off. There's now a distance check for docking. And I'm going to take a peek where we're at on this stream. About an hour and a half. I could probably keep going for a little bit, but I'm trying to figure out what I'd like to work on. There's not a whole lot of easy, quick things, really. But I do have a whole lot of small, dumb things that I'll have to do. I might actually piece together planets and stuff outside of the stream later today, and I want to do some work with the World Creator program. There's not much to show off right now, other than, like, it's full of all kinds of weird old... I dropped my mouse. It's full of all kinds of weird old stuff that I use to make lots and lots and lots of the graphics that I work with. Everything from platforms and tiles to pipes and textures and even animated characters. And I'll probably demonstrate that in another stream while I'm working on this one, because there is a lot of crossover in the different programs that I'm using, and so kind of just want to get out of this project here, get out of this one here, don't want to save any of those changes. And so that's a couple things out of the way, a couple things off the to-do list. Fixed a whole bunch of things, tried to fix something that didn't work. Gotta look up some math for a couple of these things. And then there's a priority fix that I'm gonna fiddle with later today, I think. And really, it's a dumb issue where if you have your mouse hovering over a button when you activate another with the selector field, it makes two buttons turn different colors. It's the wrong color and everything's all funky. So I want to mess with that later. We'll go ahead and call it a day. Not even a day, call it a stream for now. Got a nice few things done. Showed off a couple stuff, or showed off a couple techniques. Don't forget to check out the website, screamingbrainstudios.com. You can totally download all this free stuff. The tool I was talking about for making textures for planets is, if you didn't see it in the video, it's called Textures for Planets. And you can download that from texturesforplanets.com. It's no longer supported, it's no longer active website, and the website might go down soon enough. And soon I'll have a tutorial related to using that, creating colorizers and tools for it. So you can create stuff your own. And you can also get all of these free graphics at the screamingbrainstudios.com or on itch.io, and subscribe for $1 to get a bunch of extra free stuff, free assets, and special things. But thanks for checking it out. Don't forget to check out Quaternius. He's got some great stuff. There's some cool stuff on this website. But till next time, thank you guys for popping by.